In this video, I'm going to show you how you can add multiple worksheets to your workbook. We typically start with sheet 1, and we're going to add multiple worksheets. We're going to rename those worksheets, and I'm also going to tell you about a function called concatenate. And then we're going to compile our worksheet, and I will show you how you can link data from your worksheets to create a calculated column on a separate worksheet or even a separate workbook. So let's get started. I've opened up the payroll worksheet that we started back in when we first started in Excel, and it was called I think it was called January payroll. I just renamed it to January 2018 because what I'm going to do here is create one sheet for each month, and then we'll have one page that's an overall budget that shows our payroll for the whole year. And that will calculate a running total as we add more months and to each, as we add more weeks to each month and then months to the year. So as our employees get paid, that number is going to increase. So what I've done is I've just taken our data. This is the same data that we started with: the employee last name, first name, employee ID, hourly pay, hours worked this week, total pay for the week. And then I added a week ending column because I want to have all of my January on one page. So I've copied that. So now I've got data for all of my employees. And I've changed the week here so that the week ending corresponds with the weeks of the month. And I've got a total down here. And then I've done a calculation that calculates the total pay for the month of January. So if I double click that, you can see the formula. It's going to be equal sum, and then it calculates everything from the first pay entry, which is in cell F3, to the last pay entry, which on mine is cell F42. Now what I want to do really quickly is show you what is called the concatenate function. And concatenate means to link or join together. In Excel, when you concatenate, or when you use a formula to concatenate, it can link words or characters or phrases that you have in cells. It can link cells. You can add new words in there. You can do it just creates a text string for you, combining cells, data from cells, or from other characters. I'm going to click here in my total, and I'm going to create a new formula. So let me just delete the total out of there, and I'm going to type in my formula: equals concatenate, and that's spelled C-O-N-C-A-T-E-N-A-T-E. Notice when I start typing it, Excel starts guessing what I'm going to be doing. It starts trying to predict. So it pulls up anything that starts with C-O-N or however many letters I've put in. At this point, I could click, or I could hit the tab button, and it's going to populate that with the sum, so I don't have to actually type the whole word out. And now you can see the hint down here shows me what it's going to concatenate or link together. So it says text 1, text 2, etc. So what I want is a text field. I want it to say total for. So that's a text string, so I need double quotes around it. And then I'm going to want a space, because I want a space between the word for and then the month. And then I put a comma in there because we're going to separate each element of what we're stringing together with a comma. So that's just how Excel reads it. Now I want it to look at this cell here and take whatever this value is, so I don't have to retype it every time. So now my formula is equal concatenate, and then open parentheses, double quote, total for space, double quote, comma, and then cell A1. I'm going to close my formula with a closed parentheses, and then hit the enter key, and now it's added this sentence: total for January 2018. Now this is going to be really cool, and I'll show you why in just a minute. So now we have a worksheet for January. I want to change my sheet 1 so that I know that this is January, so I'm just going to double click it where it says sheet 1, and notice that it's highlighted, so I can start typing. I just want to call it January. And then I hit the enter key, and that locks it in. So now now my sheet 1 of this workbook is called January. Let me close this side over here so we have a little bit more room. And so you'll notice down here you've got some buttons that are grayed out on this side. There's just some navigation buttons. They're grayed out right now because we don't have anywhere to navigate to. We only have this one worksheet. And then on this side there's a little plus button. When you hit that plus button, when you just hover over it, the new hint, a new sheet hint will appear, which I think you probably can't see because it's off the video. But if you click that plus button, then you'll get a new sheet, and it calls it sheet 1. If I do it again, then I'll have sheet 2, sheet 3, sheet 4, and so on. Now I want to have one of the sheets, I'm going to have one sheet over here in front of January, and that's going to be our overall budget for the year. So if I click sheet 1, then I can just, holding down my mouse button, I can drag it. Do you see that little black triangle that appears there? That's telling me where this worksheet tab will appear if I drop it. So if I move it a little bit over, it's going to jump right over there in front of January, and that's where I want it. So I'm going to leave it there. So now my sheet 1, and then I've got January. So I'm going to double click sheet 1 and change that to total for year. So this is going to be our total payroll for the year. And then I have January, and then I want February here, so I double click on sheet 2, and I'm just going to type in the word February. Double click sheet 3, double click sheet 4. Oops, that's April. And so you would have one tab for each month, and then you've got one tab that's the total. Now right now these are all blank, but I want to copy my data because my employees are pretty much going to stay the same. They might change a little bit. You know, we might add or delete somebody, but for right now we're going to copy everything that's on here, and then we can just adjust the hours worked this week and whatever else we need to adjust. So I'm going to click, now I could click and drag to select everything and highlight, but the easier way to do it is to click this little button in the upper left-hand corner of my worksheet between the column indicators and the row indicators. That selects the entire worksheet. Then when I copy, I can click down here on February and paste, and it copies the formatting and spacing and everything. So that's kind of a cool feature. Let me go ahead and add a couple more worksheets down here. Oops, put that there. So like I said, theoretically you're going to have a sheet for each month, but I'm not going to do that just so that, because you don't need to see me adding 12 worksheets here. So now we have March, April, May, and June, June, and July, and these are all blank. I'm going to come back to my sheet that has data in it, and I'm going to select this upper corner and copy again. And I can click on March and then paste, or I can select multiple worksheets. So I'm holding down the Shift key and clicking the tab, or I can hold down the Control key. I'm sorry, that's not right. I can hold down the Control key or the Shift key and click each tab, but if I hold down the Shift key and click the last tab, it selects everything in between. So the first tab that I clicked on, the last tab that I clicked on, and then everything in between are now selected. You can tell that they're selected because the selected worksheets are bold. The name of the worksheet is bold. So look over here at February and then look at April, and can you see the difference there? So now we have a cell selected here, A1, and I've already copied my worksheet from February, and so I'm just going to paste it here by using Control V. And so it pasted my, actually I had copied it from January and pasted it to February, so it still says January on it. So if I click over here on February, this is my February data. Now I'm clicking on March, and now we see that same data on March, April, May, June, and July. So that's just an easy way to copy and make things identical. That way you know your formatting is going to be consistent throughout. So I'm going to come over here to February real quick, and let's just click up here where it says January, and I want this to say February. So I'm just going to change January to February. And remember how we concatenated our formula for concatenating down here, total for January 2018. The January 2018 was coming from this cell up here. Now when I hit enter to lock that change in, so now this is February. So now when I scroll down here, it's changed our total from January to February. So likewise, when I change this to March, now total for March, April, oops, Whatever you type here is going to be down here. So if I typed in just something, that's what it's going to be here. So April, May, June, and July. And now we want, on our total for the year, I want total payroll for 2018 in my first cell here. And I'm going to make that bold, and I want it a little bit bigger. So I can either change my font by clicking here, or I can use the increase font size. So that looks like a good size to me. So I want to put each month. So now I have months for, actually let's go ahead and put, I'm going to add a row here. So I can either right click and select insert and do an entire row. And I want this to be month, and this is going to be payroll cost. And I'm going to spread this out, and spread this out. And then I want my total payroll for 2018 title to be centered across those two. So I click and drag to select both rows, and then click merge and center. Oh, that's supposed to be months, sorry. And I want that to be bold, and I'm going to select from here because I want to make both uniform. So now I want my data from this field here, total for January, to populate this cell here for January. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a formula here and just put equal sum, open parentheses, and then I'm going to click the January payroll cell and just click in that cell that I want it to populate. You can see up here that I've got my formula equal sum. Excel has put the sheet name because we have multiple sheets and we've gone to a different sheet. So it's looking at January, cell 43. And I'm going to close my parentheses and hit enter. It goes back to my original worksheet. Now I want to make sure that this is formatted as currency, so I've clicked and dragged all of my payroll cost cells, and I'm going to click I want to make this a currency. You can make it accounting if you want to. Remember, accounting puts the $ on the far left and aligns the decimals on the right. Currency keeps the $ right next to. So let's change that. So the $ is on the far left on accounting and right up next to it. And so that's just going to be whatever you want it to be. Or whatever if your employer wants it a certain way, or if you work for an accounting firm, then probably you will use the accounting format. So use the format that is logical for your needs, either currency or accounting. And then we're going to do that formula again. So equal sum. This time we want our formula to look at the February sheet. So I'm going to add. And you can type these in yourself, but it's always better to let Excel to navigate to it, to click on it, and then that way you don't have to worry about making sure that you've added that exclamation. The exclamation tells Excel that this is a worksheet called March, cell F43. So now right now I had copied my January data to February and March, so everything is the same. Let's go ahead and add a total here. and I want this to, I'm going to do equal sum, and I want this to total everything from January through December. Let's just make that a little bit bigger. And all of our payrolls are the same right now because I just copied January onto everything. But let's just say that maybe this person doesn't work here anymore. So I can go into this and delete this person. Every time I see her, I'm going to just delete that row. So if I want to delete the row, I can click the row indicator. Was that the one that I deleted? Yeah. So Tammy quit, and I want to delete multiple. So I've got Tammy 3 more times on this sheet. I can hold down Control and click the row indicator, and notice now I've got 2 things that are selected. I'm going to do that again. I'm still holding Control, and I'm going to click the next one, and then I'm going to delete. And so that's going to change that number. So now if we click back on total for the year, you'll see that my February total has changed. So maybe Tammy was just out on leave for the rest of February, and she came back in March. And let's just say that Ramirez Faustino got a raise. So I'm going to change his hourly pay to $22 an hour. So every time I see Ramirez Faustino now, I'm going to give him 22. And so now my total has changed. So if I click over here, you'll see that my total for March has changed also. So anytime I make a change to any of these sheets that are linked back to this sheet, then you'll see that change on your total cost page. So let me go over here to May, June, and July, and let's just delete, because we haven't had these yet. So I'm going to just delete all of the hours for those. And we're going to go ahead and do the formula for each of those. So now we've got May, June, and July all have 0. And I'm going to click back on my total for the year. And I want to do equal sum. And I'm going to April, the total, equal sum, May, and our total. And of course, then you would have that also for the rest of your months. So you can see that now we've got all of our totals in here. So in April, we've done April. In May, when we start adding how many hours our employees worked, let's just say everybody worked 40 hours. So now we have a value for May. So anytime you make a change to any one of these sheets, it's automatically going to change it on your total for the year payroll page. And so that's just a really, that's one of those things that you can do to link your data so you're not having to like copy things and risk user error. You just make sure that your formulas are all working on each one of your worksheets, and then you copy it onto the overall payroll page, and then everything is calculated for you automatically. Now you can also do this between workbooks. So when I save this whole workbook, when I save it, it's going to be called a workbook, and it would be saved in a specific location. Maybe I've got an overall budget for a 5-year period. So I've got one big overarching budget in a separate file that's looking at my budget for 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, and we could update that with formulas that are linked to this particular workbook, and then the workbook for 2017, 2016, and so on. So you can link things within the worksheets, within the workbook, and then among workbooks. So outside of the workbook, you can link things outside. The only thing that you have to remember about workbooks that are linked together is that they always have to be in the location that you saved them in, or you can break links. When you update something, sometimes if you don't have things, if you have a workbook open and you update something on another page, you might have to refresh it, but everything is all linked together, so the formulas will force Excel to recalculate everything based on whatever you've changed.